Welcome, Yamhill County, to Speaking Frankly. I'm your host, Howie Harkema, and our tagline is, and how we doing? And we're doing great today. It's a beautiful day, and I'm outside, and Victoria Ernst, who's the candidate for representative for House District 24, is here for her second interview. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you, Howie.
You're so welcome. So, Victoria, what have you learned on the campaign trail over the last few months? I know you've been busy, so.
Well, I've learned a lot. So I have been really busy. I have gone to city council meetings in all but one of the towns in the district so far, and I'm working really hard to get to that town. I've also gone to planning commission meetings, other community meetings like Chamber of Commerce and Rotary and Kiwanis, and been sitting in on school board meetings and just trying to learn as much as I can and meet as many people in each community, because I think that's the role of the representative, is to find out what people need and then to go out and get it for them. And it's been really eye-opening. I think one thing that I'm really impressed by consistently is how dedicated the people in each community are to their community, and how each community has its own character and personality, and it's really cool. We have a really I grew up here. I grew up in Yamhill County, and so I had some idea, but I hadn't been involved in each community in the way that I have become, and it's pretty awesome and a really special place that I don't think that communities like this exist everywhere. So it's a really special thing. One thing I've noticed too, with being involved in a lot of the, like, going to city council meetings and that kind of thing, is I'm on the budget committee in McMinnville, so I knew pretty well the challenges that McMinnville was facing with budget issues, but those issues are really common throughout the district. Pretty much every community has needs of really big infrastructure projects like water and sewer and wastewater, and also road issues. A lot of, basically every town except for McMinnville has 99, but has a major state highway running through its downtown. And that creates a lot of challenges because the cities and the county don't have control over those roads. It's all up to the state, which means that it's a really big opportunity to have a representative that could advocate for all of those communities at the state level, because something like, a blinking crosswalk could be a big deal in a community like Carlton, that's working on their Highway 47 realignment, or a community like Amity that doesn't have sidewalks but has lots of kids that are walking along the highway to get to school.
Scary.
So it is really scary. And I mean, there's other really big infrastructure projects too, like the bypass, which I've also been learning a lot about. I've been to the Parkway Committee meeting and met with Dave Hageberg individually too, to talk about that and the upcoming phases, and how important big projects like that are for regional growth and for managing the growth that we're seeing now and preserving these special communities that we have. One of the things too that I've kind of come to realize through this process is how big of an opportunity this seat is. So it's basically a Yamhill County seat, which is really neat because previously the district was pulled into 5 or 6 different districts, and it was the county was, and we weren't really anybody's priority. There was always another population center that was pulling the attention of our representatives.
Sure.
And now we don't have that. It's basically just a Yamhill County seat, which is really cool and means that we could have representation in Salem that is focused pretty much on just Yamhill County and then a bit of Polk County.
I was going to ask you if there was an overlap.
There's a little bit. So Willamina and Grand Ron is part of the district. So is the Ballston area, but it doesn't go as far south as like Perrydale. So a little bit west of Amity as well, but it's pretty much Yamhill County.
Yeah, sounds like that.
And it's also really neat for the communities in the West Valley because they're all in one district now, which previously Sheridan and Willamina were split up into two different districts, which just doesn't make a lot of sense because those communities are so close and share so many resources.
Right.
So it's just a really big deal, and I think that we really need to make sure that we elect somebody that's going to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. And so I'm getting pretty excited about it because it's being from here. I know how important it is that we preserve what we have here and make sure that we really have a welcoming community for everybody and that we can be prosperous. Another thing that I've realized at the different city council meetings and even through working with YCAP more closely is that the grant processes are really challenging for smaller communities to navigate. So the process themselves, the applications are daunting. There's a lot of information there. And then managing the grants is a whole other process. And a lot of small communities, like Amity, for example,
Sure.
have a really small city staff that is in charge of running the whole city. Obviously, the city council and the mayor and all of that are volunteer, as they are in all of the cities in the district. And so that leaves a lot of work for grant writing and management, plus managing the city and everything else for the city manager, essentially. And that's pretty impossible for one person to do and compete with communities all over the state to get those funds. And I don't think that having the grant process be so complicated and the reporting processes to be so complicated serves small communities. And I think part of the problem is that there aren't representatives from rural communities and smaller communities that have a seat at the table when those decisions are made. So I think there's a big opportunity to shape funding opportunities at the state level so that the communities here in Yamhill County can benefit more and take more advantage of those.
Sure.
So that's another really big issue that I've seen that I hope to work on. And then just in general, the opportunities for these communities to work together. So kind of like I mentioned with Willamina and Sheridan and Grand Ronde all being in one district now. Sure. A lot of the services that are available in Yamhill County are centralized in McMinnville or in Newburgh. And there isn't a lot of availability to access those services in other parts of the county. But from a district level, there could be more coordinated delivery of those services and be able to meet people where they are. So I think that's another really big opportunity if we're looking at it from a broader perspective.
I always say that we're better when we work together, so I totally get that.
Yes. And it's a better way to take advantage of the resources we have because you can, if Sheridan itself can't support having full-time services, but it could share those costs with Sheridan or with Willamina and Grand Ronde, and then the three communities together could have a better service available for folks and be able to sustain it.
I totally understand that. Yes, every city in Yamhill County and even in the outlying areas, such as Grand Ronde, Willamina, Gaston, et cetera, are uniquely them. They are very unique to themselves, but yet we're all part of a larger community, whether it be in Yamhill County or an overlap, to get the job done. And I don't think that we've had the superior representation for all of us to get things done that we truly need. And when I say that, I'm talking about Yvette Potter, who's the mayor of Yamhill, or Rachel King, who's the mayor of Amity, or Linda Watkins, who's the mayor of Carlton. They have a harder time. And you're right. The city managers don't have the time for the grant process, and every grant is uniquely different, and the reporting process and measurability is different. So,
Hmm. But a lot of those programs are designed at the state level, and if the state could have maybe an office that could coordinate reporting for everybody that's receiving the grants versus everybody doing it on their own or paying consultants to do it,
right.
a lot more of the money could actually go towards the
And
services.
that's super important because we don't want to waste any of the tax money, period.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of there. I think we can do a lot better job with the resources that are out there, just making sure they're getting to the right places versus being spent on attorneys and consultants. And I'm an attorney, but I no.
No, I totally get that. And the Newburgh School District kind of defines exactly what you're saying with the hire of
Mhm.
Mr. Tyler. So,
Yeah, well, in the county too.
yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's a lot of resources going towards court fees and lawyer fees right now that when there's a lot of need for actual substantive help and
exactly.
services. And
So, what do you think are the important questions that some of the Yamhill County citizens have asked you while you've been out on the campaign trail?
well, it's a good question. Um, a lot of people are, especially in some of the smaller communities, they're really thrown off when I knock on their door because I don't think they've ever had anybody come knock on their door before. And and once they realize that, you know, what I'm there for, they're mostly receptive to talking to me, but a lot of times they they're wondering why I'm running and not because like not my personal motivations, but more as if they don't have a lot of faith that things can change. So I think voter apathy and just frustration with the system in general is really a big deal here and probably the biggest challenge, or definitely I think the biggest challenge that we're facing. I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. There were like 9,000 Democrats that didn't vote in the special
Right.
election that we had
Exactly.
earlier this year. That's a huge number. The Bershauer recall failed by like 1,600 votes. So if those 9,000 people would have turned in a ballot, I imagine that would have been a different outcome. Even if they didn't all vote yes, but just it it's kind of wild that so many people don't vote and so many people don't vote because they don't think their vote matters. And if if more of us voted, then it would really matter. I mean, not that it doesn't now, but there is a really big potential for change. And I think too a lot of people assume that our county is is just too red, and I don't think that's true either. There's when you look at the voter breakdown, there's 20,000 over 20,000 non-affiliated voters
Right.
and only about 14,000 registered Republicans and about 12,000 registered Democrats, and then a few other minor party
Sure.
registered voters. But I mean, that's a pretty competitive district, really. And
It
it's
is if everybody would get out and vote.
right. And I think so just trying to explain that to people and answer that question and get them to feel like there is hope that we could see some things change. That's been a lot of the questions that I get.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is the biggest drawback to voting? Do you think it's just no trust of anything's going to change, or the government is getting too big, or what do you think? In personally, what do you think?
Well, from when I've talked to people about this, it's either that they don't think that things could change, that they're really disillusioned with the whole process, or a lot of people, and especially younger voters. So I've been to a couple doors recently where it's somebody who's never voted before. They're 18 or 19 years old, and they were really hesitant about whether they would vote. And I mean, I remember being a new voter, and I thought I was so worried that I was going to make the wrong decision
Mm,
because I didn't feel like I had enough information. But I mean, the older I've gotten, the more I've learned about politics. There's a lot of people that, you know a lot more than you think you do. I think is the what I've been trying to tell
Right.
those voters, because there's you have just as much right to cast a vote when you're 18 as when you're 75, even though you don't have the same level of life experience. So I think, and it's one of the great things about Oregon is the voters pamphlet, and that we vote by mail, and you can sit down at home and take your time and do research while you're looking at your ballot. And that's really cool. And not a lot of like, it's pretty rare to have that. And
It's easy.
yeah, it is easy. And that's another reason why it's kind of funny why people don't vote, because it is so easy compared to in a lot of other states. Um, but I think it's a combination of being um, frustrated and not feeling like your vote could make a difference, but also that you feel like you don't have enough information, or you're not as informed.
Well, it's not like you can't go out and do the research. Um,
Right.
the advent of the internet is so simple to find out more than you possibly want to know. So,
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's true. But I think that makes it harder too. And I went to the Linfield Democrats meeting last night, and they were commenting on the fact that they felt it was really hard to find out information about the local candidates. None of them grew up here, so they don't have the background of
sure.
what's going on. They're, coming in new to it and trying to figure out where people stand. And it's interesting because there is a lot of information out there, but there's sometimes almost too much information, or
Exactly.
so that's also harder to sort through. And it's also a lot of information that's pretty well packaged to make like, it's maybe not authentic. So that's why like programs like this are really great, because you actually get a chance to expand a bit
We
more.
try to be authentic.
Yes, that's important.
So, what do you think the differences are from your perspective um, than your opponent, Lucida Elmer?
Well, I think we're really different candidates, or I know we are really different candidates. I think the way we're approaching the race is very different. She has a lot more money than I do. She's very well funded,
Yeah.
and funded by a lot of out of state PACs, pretty much all PAC money, not very many individual donors, but it's mostly for profit healthcare industry, which
Sure.
is terrifying to me because it's one of the biggest evils in our society, in my opinion.
That and
I
big
guess
pharma.
they're supporting their candidate, that's for sure. Yeah, but like pharma has donated to her, which is takes me back to the Sicko movie, and
Yeah, exactly.
it's really kind of wild. Um, but I also think she's relying on that money and on direct mail and commercials and stuff like that to get her message out there. Whereas my campaign, and I want to say our campaign because it's not just me, my sister is my campaign manager, my dad, my friend Rick, they've knocked just as many doors as I have. And Ricky and I are going to go knock doors this afternoon after we take
Awesome.
So, I mean, we're really doing the work on the ground to try to connect with as many voters as we can, because I think, and I know that's the best way to connect with people, but we do need to be able to get the message out there to more people. So that's a big difference. But I also think, just as somebody, me, who's my career in human rights, in international law,
Right.
democracy itself as a value is pretty important to me. And I think that is a difference between the two of us. She is really extreme. I don't think her extreme positions are going to would set her up well to be able to work with people in the legislature, which is the most important thing. Is we need somebody that's going to be collaborative and work and find solutions. And I think she's more focused on blame than on solutions. I think just based on how hard I'm working and the effort that I've been putting in. I'm more about action and about making things happen. Um, so I think we're very different that way. And I think the last thing that Yamhill County or District 24 needs is another leader that is not concerned with service and doing what's right for the community.
Well, number one, uh, all of the constituents in Yamhill County need to be represented,
Yes.
whether they're red or blue or every shade in between. However, having said that, the farmers seem to go with the red view more than the people who live in communities. Um, I see a lot of signage everywhere I go that's on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's very concerning to me that do they really know who the person that they're voting for is, or are they just doing a down ballot for the GOP? And that's very concerning to me.
Yeah, it's concerning to me too. And when you bring up farming, my entire family are all farmers in the St. Paul area and have been for.
And I understand that. I
But it
totally
but
get
it
it.
but it's frustrating because I don't think that I don't think it helps them to put their vote behind candidates that aren't making things happen for them. And I think it's a missed opportunity because I have background in agriculture and I understand the challenges, and I spent 2 years on the Oregon Association of Nurseries Willamette chapter board. So I have a proven track record of advocating for the agriculture community. And so I think it's a big missed opportunity to not at least consider somebody that has that background just because I also happen to be a Democrat.
Right. And I
Because
totally,
I think and it goes for the whole, all of rural Oregon and our mid-sized communities where Salem is run by Democrats from Portland and Salem and Eugene. And because we don't elect Democrats from here, there's nobody in the room when those decisions are made that's saying, okay, but like this would work better in Yamhill County.
right.
And that's a really big missed opportunity, and I think contributes to the feeling of apathy that a lot of voters have because we haven't been well represented for so long. So I hope that changes. I hope we can change that.
Well, I'm not saying all farmers, but a majority, I would say, in Yamhill County definitely lean in the red direction. So it's concerning. So let's go into your platform a little bit. Let's talk about affordable housing versus low cost housing because there's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think housing is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing here. We're growing so fast, and there's also a lot of really good jobs here in the hospitality industry,
Right.
especially the wine industry. There's a huge, career potential there. But when you talk to the people that are in the industries, they can't find the workforce, and a really big challenge, and one of the main reasons why is because there's no housing for people. And so I think we need more housing options. We need to get more creative with how we're thinking about housing. For example, I live with my little sister. We're roommates, which is fine, but most adults probably don't want to have a roommate, and there should be more housing options for single people or people without children if you don't want a house with a yard or you're too busy to take care of a yard or those kind of things. Um, and but at the same, so we need that. That's part of it. So like workforce housing, middle class housing. We also need housing that fits I mean, we need housing for everybody. Everybody should have housing.
Right.
So there's also the issue of, as rent is now allowed to go up like 14% or something like that
Yeah.
next year. That's only going to make the houselessness crisis that we have in Oregon worse. I mean, we already have not enough housing that fits the needs of the people that live here, and we need to do a better job at diversifying our housing so that everybody has a place to live.
Yeah. So yes, we need houseless housing. We need um, workforce housing. We need um, people that are retiring housing, et cetera, et cetera. But all of those things are super important. And with the cost of housing right now being an average between $400,000 and $500,000 to buy a home, it makes it impossible for those that are in poverty and or houseless to do anything but rent. And with the massive changes in the cost of apartments or small homes to rent, it keeps them from being able to do it, especially if they're working um, at minimum wage and 32 hours a week. They might be able to afford an apartment, but they can't afford anything else. That's it. That's all they can afford.
Yeah, and probably not with much cushion. I mean, my cousin, her husband had to miss work for 2 weeks, and they're a single income family, and he missed work for 2 weeks, and that that made it hard for them because they don't have the enough savings to be able to cover that kind of a work loss. He was in the hospital, so it's doubly an issue because now they've got hospital bills.
Well,
So
even worse than that, in August, the housing moratorium money for rentals went off. And so we're in a bit of a bind for those people that are going to be evicted. I just watched a special on YouTube on Arizona's problem with this very thing. And it is substantial how many people are now falling into homelessness due to the fact that they don't have someone that is assisting with the payments to the landlords and such, and being thrown out um, into the streets,
mm-hmm,
which just adds to the homelessness problem.
right.
So,
Yeah, there's definitely things that the state needs to do to make housing more equitable,
yeah.
and it's a
I
huge
know this is going to sound crazy, but we've already almost run out of time. So,
problem.
do you have any upcoming meet and greets or fundraisers or debates, and where and when?
Yes, so I have a fundraiser tomorrow, but this will probably air after that.
Yes,
Um, but I have a meet and greet on October 11th at the Senior Center in McMinnville from 11 to 1. That's on a Tuesday, so it'll be in the dining room. I'm hoping people will drop in for that. I am doing a few forums, so the NAMI forum on October 6th, that's next Thursday. That's at 6:30
at the senior
at the
center.
Senior Center in McMinnville, yes. And then I'm doing the forum at George Fox on the 8th of October. That's in the morning at 10, but I think it goes into the early afternoon. They're interviewing quite a few different candidates for different races. And then on the 12th, the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce is having a debate at OMI. It's at 5:30. And then we're hopefully going to be having a debate at Linfield that week as well. So we're still trying to work that out. But all of this information you can find on my website too.
Right. Tell everybody your website and your Facebook page.
Yes, so Victoria, the number 4, OregonHouse.com is my website. And I don't know the exact URL for my Facebook, but
It
that is not
is
on my website.
Victoria Ernst for HD24.
Thank you, Howie.
You're welcome. I have to do my research, so so you've got a short time to wrap all of this stuff up. How can the citizens of the community assist you in your efforts, and do you still need volunteers?
Yes. So I would take anybody that wants to volunteer. We have an amazing group of volunteers so far, and that's really important because, like I mentioned before, the best way to reach voters is by talking to them face to face. So anybody that's interested in door knocking, which it is actually really fun, so don't be intimidated by it. And people go out in pairs too, so it's really not that intimidating. We'll also be phone banking and text banking as we get closer to the election when the ballots go out. Um, there's also a lot of other great candidates, and the neighborhood leader program that the Democratic Party does is pretty awesome. And if you're not familiar, you can sign up to be a neighborhood leader, and then you reach out to your neighbors. So they're people that you already know at least a little bit, and just remind them to turn in their ballots. And you can answer questions that they might have about some of the issues if you want to. But it's a huge voter turnout tool. It's like it's by far and away the best way to get people to vote, and it's people that are contacted by a friend and reminded to vote way more often than people that aren't. So even if you don't want to reach out to your neighbors, at least reach out to your friends.
Or family.
Yes.
What about yard signs? Where can people get
Oh, yeah.
a Victoria Ernst yard sign?
Yes. So the Democrat office in McMinnville, which is on 8th and Adams, they have yard signs there. They're open on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
And it used to be the cell phone repair shop.
Yes, it did. The cell phone stick bay. I also have them at my house in my garage. So if anybody wants to reach out to me through the website or on my Facebook page, we can get you a sign. Liz Marlia Stein has signs as well.
Right.
So we're trying to get them out there. And if there is anybody that watches this that's in the West Valley, especially, that wants to be a hub for signs, let me know, because I that would make it easier for folks out there to be able to.
Sure, absolutely. If you had an outlet where people could go in the West Valley to get them so they didn't have to come all the way to McMinnville would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm over there quite often, and
I
I
know, I've seen
always
you over
have
there
them.
a few
And
times.
I know I everywhere I go, I have signs in my car, so I'm always giving them out. But yeah.
Well, it's really important to get the message out. I've seen a few of your signs, and the banner that's also up at um, McMinnville, Yamhill County Democrat office,
Hmm.
um, with the people from the GOP that are running also for multiple different things. Um, they seem to have a lot of the large ones. I see them everywhere.
Yeah, they do. They also didn't follow the campaign finance rules when they made the signs. They're
Oh,
all supposed
wonderful.
to have their pack information on it so that people can know
Right.
who paid for it, because it's a
And I know yours
campaign
does.
communication. They do, yes, as we're following the rules. But yeah, so that's kind of a shame, but
Yes, it is a shame. And yeah,
it's
they tend to not follow the
encouragement
rules. They make
that
their
people
rules
that
up
want
as they go.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, but people that, if you're running for state legislator, that's you'd be writing laws, and it's interesting that you wouldn't be following the laws in your campaign.
I can't imagine what would cause that.
Yeah, maybe you don't think the laws apply to everybody, and I don't know. That's
Yeah,
it's
that's too
very
deep of a subject. I don't want to
concerning.
go there. Victoria, thank you so much for running number one. Number two, you will be a great legislator. Thank you so much.
Thank
And I hope that everybody gets out and does what they need to continue the efforts to get you elected. And I hope that the apathy disappears enough that we can vote you in, and a lot of other people, of course,
you. Hmm.
Beth Witowski, Rick Rogers, Remy Drabkin, um, and others. So
Yeah.
thank you for being on again, and good luck on your campaign trail, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Howie. It was great chatting again.
It's always great to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.